Hello and welcome to the Animation Industry Podcast. My name is Terry and I'm still recovering from a knee injury from beginner yoga 3 months ago. Today's chat is for everyone looking to make crafts for a living, and that's because I'm chatting with a puppet set and prop fabricator, a stop motion animator, and a super cool cosplay artist, all of which happen to be the same person, and her name is Meaghan Hettler. And fun fact, we went to Sheridan College together and we both worked on the Stupid Buddy production Ultra City Smiths together. Now, in our chat, Meaghan is going to share how she got into puppet fabrication in the first place, how she got her first paid gig in it, and how she continues to pursue that dream career of making crafts for animation for a living. But first, this episode is sponsored by my friends over at Hue, makers of colorful, affordable USB cameras and animation software for creative teaching, work, and play. Available from huehd.com and Amazon, the new Hue HD Pro camera features 1080p image and video resolution, a built-in microphone, and LED lights. Their funky, flexible plug-and-play cameras are easy to use, and they're compatible with any apps that recognize USB cameras, including Discord, Dragonframe, OBS, Twitch, Google Meet, Zoom, and many more. Visit huehd.com for more information and follow at Hue Cameras on Instagram or Twitter for news, freebies, and giveaways. Now, without further ado, let's jump in. Hi, Meaghan.
Hi, Terry.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you, Terry?
I'm good. I'm ready to grill you.
Oh gosh. Okay.
You're like, please
Grill
no.
me like a pork chop. It's okay.
First of all, just tell me, like, you know, when you were writing down on a government form what your profession is, what do you put?
I still put animator because everything I usually find that says like fabricator is like related to steel, like steel fabrication or something like that. And like puppeting. I guess there's always like puppetry, but not like stop motion. So I just put animation.
Okay, so
What do you put?
animator, I guess, too. I don't know.
Yeah.
This is still kind of new to me. Before I was a student. I was a student last year.
Yeah. I mean, there's weird drop-down menus. You can't even like type out what you want, right?
Yeah. Okay, so animator, but you consider yourself a puppet fabricator first and foremost.
I consider myself kind of like a 60-40 split, puppeting 40 or making puppets like 60, animating like 40. I still do like animating. I still animate here and there.
Okay. So when you say puppet fabricator, you're talking about stop motion specifically.
Yes.
So are you working on anything cool right now?
Oh gosh. No, not really.
That's okay.
Yeah. No, I am making a puppet, a felted puppet. I might be working with Teus later in 2022 to do a little course about stop motion felting.
Oh,
Or
maybe
felting
I
with
should
stop
take
motion
that.
animation.
Actually,
As if you
though,
don't already.
I don't know how to felt
worked on
though.
it.
I know how to like wrap felt sheets around like styrofoam. That's how I make all my characters. But felting
Yeah.
is just like I just don't know. Okay.
I mean, you got half of it right there.
Okay. So let's talk about how you actually, I think this is really cool. And also you're super talented. And
thank you.
I have so many random questions. Can I just ask you a random question right now?
Yeah, let's go.
If you're comfortable, how much is getting a felted puppet made cost, like for a professional production? Like what should I be budgeting when I'm like doing my next production? Like $1,000, like 2,000, 500, 200? Like what is is there a range, or is it always like you start with a crazy armature and then like go from there?
I would have to say, and I mean, you know this, but it would depend on like the animation needs, right? So
Yeah.
how simple is the animation? Are we talking like a minute long thing where the puppet doesn't really need to move too much? Are we talking lots of expression? Like,
Okay, so say I have like a
stretch?
commercial project. The commercial is 30 seconds spot for TV, and I want felted people that walk around and talk. Like, where do you start with that? Like, how do you, like, do you have to get like crazy custom made armatures with like, you know, that are soldered and ball and socket joints? Are you making wire?
You could definitely get away with wire, you know. Good old wire does the trick pretty good. Um, I don't know. I think felting is very affordable, and that's part of the charm and beauty of it. Is it's really not as hard as a lot of people think it is. Like, you're like, I could learn more about felting, and I suppose we could all learn more about everything. But you really do have the base idea. It's just like sculpting, except with wool and a little sharp, pokey needle, and you kind of.
Okay, can you take me through the process of how you would create a human character that's felted? Like, what are the materials you're using? How do you build it up?
Well, the way you were describing it with using foam is something I would do. I have tried making puppets that are entirely built up with felt, and they don't move as well from my experience.
Hmm.
Um, but I would build it up with, instead of styrofoam, maybe more of a upholstery foam
Hmm.
that's got more of a squish to it. You can kind of
Yeah.
like felt into it a little bit easier. Um, and yeah, just wrapping that with the wool, felting it in real good with that needle. Um, it's just it's so simple. It's honestly so easy. It's a very forgiving material that
Yeah.
if something breaks, you can cut it open, fix something, patch it back up.
Huh. You can just cut it open. No problem.
Yeah, I mean, you can always felt more on top of it.
Oh, wow. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. But I mean, for an entire process, I would say it's no different than making your normal your normal puppet. You're just swapping out latex or silicone, whatever other finish you do you know, with felt.
Yeah.
Most
Cool.
puppets have that like upholstery foam buildup, I feel.
See, that is a tip that I really didn't know until I went by stop motion departments. And then I
Hmm.
immediately bought a giant roll of cushion foam. Is that what it's
Yeah,
called? But I
upholstery
haven't used
foam.
it yet because I just haven't figured out how to use it. So
Oh, see.
this is like a little
Yeah,
tutorial
okay.
for me because I actually need to make a puppet like next week for a project.
Okay. Well, I
I'm
guess I
like,
could get
please.
more. Yeah, okay. I guess I need to get more detailed. I'm like warming up my brain. I would use, yeah, contact cement is
Oh,
my
instead of hot glue.
oh gosh, yeah, I try not to use hot glue for much. It's like a desperation slash
Oh, how
something
come?
like a removable. If it's something I want to be able to remove later.
You can remove contact cement.
Oh, hot glue. Sorry, not contact
Oh,
cement.
hot glue. Yeah.
But yeah, I use contact cement to glue foam together. I try not to felt through that bit because if it's really built up, it can gunk up your needle. But
Hmm.
as smelly and stinky as it is, I find that it's the it gets the job done the best. Yeah, I'm working on a puppet right now just so I can take pictures as I go, so I can have some better material visually for that workshop.
Nice, nice, cool.
Yeah.
So let's talk about how you got into this because, like, I feel like it's a very niche thing to be like, I'm a professional felt puppet maker and that's my
Oh.
career, like, because
I
stop
mean,
motion is already pretty niche. And to like work in puppetry in stop motion, like, I'm super interested. At what
mhm.
point did you get the confidence to pursue just this creative career in your life where you're like, you know what, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go to Sheridan College and this is what I'm going to be instead of all the other things that I could be.
Well, first of all, I don't know about felt stop motion. That's just a part of it. I don't know if I have the confidence. There's definitely stop motion felters out there, I
Okay,
don't
but
know
to
if
be
I'm
like to get
but
into the animation industry then.
mhm. Well, I definitely knew I wanted to do animation.
Yeah.
It took me, I went back. I went to school like as a mature student, and it did take me a while to be like, yes, I'm going to do this, and
So what were you
again,
doing
take the
before that
gamble.
point?
Just boring office jobs.
Yeah.
Honestly, nothing that's even worth talking about. It was just very mundane. Like, sure, it didn't pay minimum wage, but it was very
So
people.
how did it feel not doing animation, wanting to do animation and doing a boring office job? Like internally, what was that feeling for you?
I mean, just one of the you only live once, Terry, you know. Just like had that epiphany of like, okay, I got to take my shot with animation.
Yeah.
I saved up enough money where I felt confident that I wouldn't totally bomb everything. But yeah, I don't know. It was just a quarter life crisis. I'm not sure. Something along those lines. You know,
No, but
just got
that's
to do it.
incredible. And that's incredibly brave too, to, because you also had to save for quite a while.
I mean, yeah. I mean, you too. Don't sell
Oh,
yourself short either.
true.
Same
But no,
hat.
I think that's, I have a huge respect for you because you did this. Like, I think it takes a lot of bravery and courage to say, like, I'm going to massively change all the patterns in my life to
Mm.
pursue this future that I have no idea about, and just hope for the best and hope that this like feeling within my heart is true. Like, did it
Oh,
feel like
Terry.
that?
I mean, yeah, you're right. Oh, don't get me emotional, Terry. What the heck?
Get
I mean, it
emotional.
was
It was just an Oprah moment.
Terry. Okay, yeah. I mean, you're right. It was very stressful. It was a gamble.
Yeah.
Like there was a lot of times where I was like not sure I had made the right choice or
Well, what do you mean?
second
Like,
guess
like
myself.
fully, like you're already at Sheridan and you're questioning why you're there?
No, just like the preparation and like
Yeah.
getting up geared up to do it, and
So how did it
it
feel
was
once
just
you made that switch? Like the first day you walked into like Sheridan College, or whatever it was that you confident, like you moved
mm,
to Oakville or something.
it felt really good. I mean, I didn't move to Oakville. I stayed in Toronto,
Yeah.
which the commute sucked, but it was one of those things I just had to do. There was a lot of things that was just like I had to deal with to even go to school,
Right.
like sacrifices, if you will. But yeah, the first day walking around Sheridan and seeing all the art in the halls, and especially walking by the little stop motion section and seeing the puppets on the walls from shows I used to watch as a kid. Like I hadn't decided to do stop motion at that point, but that's definitely still something that like stuck up in my mind. Like, what? Look at that display. Wow. Oh god, gosh, I remember those characters. Wow, kind of thing. I'm sure you had a similar like, wow, look at those guys
Totally. Like
moment.
every time, I know exactly the display you're talking about. Every time I walk by, it just
Mhm.
felt like a special connection, being like, this is
Yeah.
really cool, and maybe that's why I'm here.
Yeah, the like Life's a Zoo puppets and the
Totally,
escape.
totally, totally.
Like I was watching that as a kid anyway.
So you went through the program and you fell into stop motion.
hmm Well, I guess it was at the end of the first year I started to think about it because there was that one assignment. I mean, first of all, I've always had an interest in stop motion. It's great, it's fun, but like, yeah, it's niche, right? I wasn't there to like do stop motion specifically. I was just like, I like animation, I like drawing, I can do this. Or I'm trying to do this at least. I'm doing my best. But there was that one assignment with Enzo's class.
Yes.
Yes, where it was like, do whatever you want, make a character. So I did a little like maquette, and he really pushed me to be like, to think about stop motion anyway. And then I guess second year, I don't remember exactly what. Well, there was a stop motion workshop where again you made another puppet. Or sorry, it was just an animation workshop, but I wanted to make a new puppet to do that. So I made another puppet to do that workshop. And I guess people just kept reacting really positively to my work, and I really had fun doing it.
Oh my goodness.
And it was just really affirming, and like I knew it was a gamble to like go into stop motion for the third year film. And I knew that it's like, oh, if I don't do 2D, I'm taking like portfolio material away from myself. And same again for the
Totally,
fourth
totally,
year. And I mean, it's still portfolio material for stop motion, but even back then, there were some professors who were very supportive, and others who were like, are you sure you don't want to do this because you can do this instead? And it's like, well, I know I can be a backup, and I did have backups, and I feel like you do, on some level, need to have some sort of backup. Like you don't necessarily stop doing 2D stuff, you still
totally.
like doing other stuff, but I don't know. It was just a lot of I don't want to be like all the positive feedback, but I it felt like I was doing a good job at it, and people were like, "Yes, you're doing a good job at it." And it didn't feel like it was just. It felt genuine and nice. Like there was one point where Chris Walsh told me after I had made the puppets for Plume, where he was like, "I these are better puppets than some like professional productions I've been on." And I was like, "Wow!" And like it felt genuine. It didn't feel like coddling or anything. It wasn't like, "Good
Yeah,
job, little baby, pat
amazing.
pat." It was people being like, "No, you're good at this." And I was like, "Oh, okay,
Did you
I'll
receive
keep
this kind of
trying."
feedback for your other 2D and 3D animation assignments as well?
No, see that's part. See that there we go, there we go. That's part of why I decided to go into stop motion because like I can draw, like I'm a competent artist, like my 2D stuff, like I can do layouts, I can do characters, it's fine. But like I feel like if I'm being like totally honest with myself, like I'm pretty mid ground. Like if I looked at like my art and all my peers' art, like I'm not bad. I'm not trying to beat myself down or anything. It's just like there's a lot of good artists in the world, right? So it's like I'm there. I'm happy middle ground. But with stop motion and like making stuff, I felt like I shone a little bit and like
Yeah. Wow.
yeah, so I wanted one thing I have an opinion about for like students and like art in general is I don't know if I buy into the like if you work really 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 hard, good things will happen. Like there's like a lot of unhealthy mentalities around art school and like burning yourself out and like only like I've made I've done so many like all-nighters for projects that I look back on, like, why did I even care about that project that was, like, not even that important for my art education overall? Like, I didn't have the perspective at the time to be like, "That's important, that is an important kind of thing."
Yeah.
Um, but I do think if you work really hard at something you really care about, the right people will notice, and there's a difference between working really hard at everything and losing that perspective of, like, what you're actually good at or what you really wanna do versus doing really good at that and waiting for the people who notice, who care about that kind of thing to find
Totally.
you.
Totally. No, I 1,000% agree with this. And your story almost is similar to mine. Like, I feel like
Mhm.
Enzo's character design class in first year is so important because like I also for the first time tried to make a stop motion puppet for the last thing, and that like re-sparked the love for stop motion inside of me. I was like, you know what,
Mhm.
this assignment doesn't matter. I can do whatever I want. I've already
Exactly.
got like 100% in this course because it's
Yeah.
you know
Just bless
whatever
Enzo.
because it's
Yeah.
not that hard. So let's just try something. And then I ended up like putting like, I don't know, a ridiculous amount of time and effort into this little
Mhm.
queen and duck puppet I made. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. And then that got a lot of attention just like you. And that kind of sparked something for me. I'm wondering, where would you be right now if you didn't pursue puppet making instead?
Mm.
Because you said you felt like you were a very mid-level animator layout artist.
Yeah. I mean, ideally something like layout or character design. I always kept like, 2D rigged animation in my back pocket just
So you might be
because
working
that's
at
where
like Guru or Yowza or something in
yeah,
Toronto on like
probably
TV
something
productions.
probably something like that.
Okay, how does that feel to you right now if you were working there versus what you've done?
I mean, I still think it would be very fulfilling and like fun. Like animation is animation. I'd be happy to as long as I'm working in art, I think I'd be, pretty content with everything. But having been able to work in stop motion and be on productions of various degrees, it is very fulfilling. It does feel very nice.
Yeah.
I love
Well,
that there's like stop motion in Toronto and we can help keep it in Toronto.
yes, please. No, I love what you said earlier about it's not so much hard work, it's about doing something, putting that hard work into something that you love because you are going to stand out if you're having fun. The right people are going to notice. Like I feel like in any industry in the world, the people that are passionate about it notice other people who are passionate about it. Like even myself, like I'm on Instagram every single day just waiting to be inspired basically by other people. And if
Mm.
something comes up and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'll immediately follow that person, start commenting. I might even get in touch with them, ask them to come on the podcast. And like, like that's just how you meet people and you get jobs and stuff. Like I think because you had so much fun making these puppets and you focused on that and like put your heart into it, I think that's a direct result of the jobs you've been able to land and what you're working on now, which I think is really cool, because also you're a
No.
really cool puppet maker and like
Aw.
your work
Oh,
speaks for
Terry.
itself.
Oh, Terry, I'm blushing.
You should.
Gosh.
Okay, so tell
Mhm.
me about, you graduate from school,
Mhm.
then what? Like now you're like, hey, I'm this puppet person. What do I do now? Because school is like a bubble of not reality at the same time, like, so how did you get your first paid puppet gig and how did that happen?
I guess I have I have basically stop motion department to thank for everything, you know. I love you, Evan. I love you, Phil.
I think everybody in Canada has the stop motion department to thank for everything.
Thanks, guys. So I did my internship at Sheridan, the one that we do over the summer between third and fourth year at stop motion department.
And
Um,
how did that come to be?
it was wonderful. It was great. It was perfect.
No,
It
but I
was
mean, like,
oh
when you're picking internships, like, why were they like, oh, Meaghan is cool, let's hire her versus like, I don't know, somebody
oh
else.
gosh. You know what? Well, actually, I have a little bit of a story, and I had a theory for a while, which I think Corinne got confirmed. I can't remember.
Oh,
But the internship, there was only one slot for it. And obviously both Corinne, who was in my year and is also a dear friend of ours, works in stop motion. Have you had her on the podcast?
not yet.
Oh, should bug her. Anyway, um, so we both interviewed for this position and like, we're good friends. So it was like this weird, it was never weird because we didn't want to compete with each other. It was just like we like each other too much to really compete, but we are kind of competing. It's kind of weird.
You both
But
need to get this job.
yeah, but we both want this position, yada yada. But our interviews ended up touching. They were like beside each other or whatever. So we kind of just like had them together and had like a little tour together and Corinne and I, we get along. We're friends, right? So there wasn't like this weird energy between us or anything. We're just like being normal while we have this process. Anyway, um, cut forward however many weeks or whatever, and we both got the internship. And I was always like, I think we both got it because we got along so well, and they wanted to hire both of us because we got along so well. Like, I'm not sure. And I think Corinne commented once about it to Evan, and he said something that sounded like yes, but point is getting along well with people is important.
So you had
Being friendly and
already,
nice is important.
yeah, no, I'm 1,000%, especially in stop motion where everybody knows each other and you have to work
Hmm.
together. Like, there's nobody else to work with.
Yeah, yeah.
But you had put together, so for the internship, you're like, I'm going to do stop motion as my number one thing. So here's my little
Mhm.
demo reel of my third year group film, the puppets I make, and I'm only applying to like stop motion stuff.
Yeah, I did apply to a couple other things as like, again, backup, but that was the position I was gunning for. There was the one stop motion position. It was local, like of course.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't remember actually what requirements we had to do. It was probably like, submit your portfolio type thing, which I would have had at that point, but
Cool.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
then
I
you
just
graduate school, you have this internship under your belt, you have a cute little
mhm.
portfolio.
Yeah.
What happened after that?
Well, during the internship, I had worked on a Let's Go Luna like little bit, which yeah, you also did. Yay. So I
Hey.
had worked on one of those and I had done puppets, I had done some animation for it, I had done some compositing for it. I like gotten my fingers into all the little bits. And then also like worked on Shaman's Apprentice, which
Yeah.
was an honor.
So that was
Yeah.
after school. After school was
No,
done.
that was during the internship.
Still in the
Um,
internship. Okay.
yes, so I had already had done that kind of stuff in my internship. So after graduating, there was a couple other Let's Go Luna bits that they got me to do puppets for, and then Hazal animated on. So that was very satisfying seeing my puppets animated by such a talented animator. Hi, Hazal.
I bet she listens to all of my episodes, so she's probably listening to this.
Yeah.
Hi,
Hello,
Hazal.
Hazal. Yeah, hi. Hi from the past.
Hazal, you're a great animator and your stuff is so impressive. Okay, cool.
Oh, and we
So,
miss you.
and we miss you.
Huh.
So So after school, you got to work on all these cute
Mhm,
little projects with stop
mhm.
motion apartments.
Yes. And then, of course, Stupid Buddies opened in
So
Toronto.
everything pretty much just lined up for you as soon as you
Yeah,
graduated.
it was
Like,
really weird. Like COVID and all of the closures, my year was the year that got hit with it for graduation. So it was definitely like everything was cut off. Everything is online now. So it wasn't even online because they were still trying to figure out what the heck to
yeah, it
do.
was like
Um,
all of our
yeah.
assignments got turned into like, oh, you're supposed to do a full animation, 20-second animation. Draw me 10 poses just on pieces of paper, take a picture with your camera and send them in. Like that was like,
Yeah. And
what?
for me, I had been animating and I had like I don't remember how much footage I had. But then it was just like, oh, everything's closed. And
Yeah,
kind of in
especially
that
stop
mentality of
motion.
like, yeah, it was kind of in that mentality of like, maybe I can go in next week and pick everything up. No, it was very frantic and difficult. Anyway, point is, it was that messed up my graduation and my thesis film, but weird domino effect, Stupid Buddy opens up in Toronto. So like I guess silver linings.
Yeah. So how
Yeah.
was it working at Stupid Buddy when suddenly you're working with like a team,
Mhm.
crazy materials,
Yeah.
25, I don't know how many animators who are constantly breaking things,
I think it was like
including,
40.
I feel
40?
like
No,
maybe I was
30?
breaking the most stuff. Maybe not. I don't know.
No, no, you were fine. You
I
were
was
fine.
fine. Okay, I always felt bad. But anyways,
No.
how was that whole experience going from like a very small production at stop
Mhm.
motion apartment where they're working with like 5 people
Mhm.
with like your own materials and stuff that you buy to suddenly working with a team of like 100 people in a giant studio with stages and like tons of materials and professional puppets that are built like
Gosh. Yeah. It was a kind of a nice slow amp up actually, which was nice because of warming up for how to socialize again after being locked up so
yeah
long. Because
actually
we did. Hmm?
random question, how did they why did they hire you? Because like a huge company
Mhm.
comes to Canada and is like, I want people with tons of experience with puppet fabrication.
Mhm.
I just don't know, like,
Well, I guess it was when Phil and Evan were setting up the studio and trying to get everything started, and when everything was still work from home and they were just like making armatures and sanding hands and stuff. Yeah, they put me in contact with the head of puppetry, Dan, and they were just basically like, hire this person, I guess. Hazal was there too, because she was like, I wanted something to do, I guess. So for the first like a month or something, we worked from home and spun armatures, made armatures, and so that was a nice warm up. And again, it was all
nice.
because of Evan and Phil setting
Yeah.
everything up and them working with Stupid Buddies in Toronto. So it was all thanks to Evan and Phil at the end of the day.
Yeah. Okay, so
Um,
working for like 6 months ish every single day, repairing. So first you built puppets, then repairing puppets.
yes.
And they're also like, because you're very used to making your own puppets in your own designs, kind of. And these
Mhm.
puppets are like, they're already designed, you're doing it for somebody else. Uh, did you still find that this was your thing? Like, I found the thing that I love to do.
Yeah, I mean, I do again, I do still love animation and animating. But I really like puppet fabrication too. It's hard. It's hard trying to choose because it's like you have two children. Which one do you love more? But
Yeah.
doing puppet wrangling was kind of like a happy medium where I felt like I understood like both sides. Like, okay, these are the animation needs, but also this is how the puppet works, and it was cool to see it from that perspective and to help all the animators. Don't worry, Terry, you didn't break things that much. But oh gosh. Wait,
So that's fine. So what is the thing? So you just said, you're tied between animation and puppet building. Right now you're kind of doing some puppet building. What is it like at the end of the day, what do you want to do with your career? Like you gave up this whole other life, you saved for years, you went through school, you went through COVID, you've worked on these big productions. Like, if you could have your dreams keep coming true, like what are you pursuing at the end of the day? Like you said, life is short and you only get one shot, right?
Yeah, I do like um trying to be versatile and like, especially working on Ultra City Smiths. There were a lot of people who were kind of versatile who like were animators but also did art stuff sometimes and did jump around different departments because they are all connected at the end of the day, right? Like the more you understand about things, the better you can see the whole picture, right?
Yeah.
And also just being able to hop around for different jobs is nice. So I would like to go back to animating as well,
Like stop
but
motion
also,
specifically?
yeah, stop motion, of course. If I can stay in stop motion for the rest of my life, that would be fantastic. But I wouldn't want to give up like making puppets or puppet wrangling, I suppose,
Yeah,
either. Like in an ideal world, I'd be able to cycle through everything depending on the production and
totally.
what is needed at the time.
So if you want to stay in stop motion for the rest of your
Mhm.
life, you could go to Portland, get a visa, and like, just hop around from studio to studio. You
Oh
could go
yeah.
to like LA, whatever, and stay there your whole life because there's so much going on. But in Toronto, like, what are the opportunities? The Stupid Buddy came to town. They had a production. You mentioned Teus. Uh, like, are you doing independent stuff, or like how would you right now with the situation in Toronto? How would you be able to maintain a career?
I do think, I mean, who knows what it's going to be like in the future. Hopefully, Stupid Buddies will stay here and things will be a consistent flow of wonderful stop motion projects. Um, but I do think realistically, like, having side hustles, side projects that you're working on is
Mm.
important. Having versatility is important.
So do you have some
Um,
side hustles you're working on right now?
I mean, I have an Etsy store.
What do you sell in your Etsy store, Megan?
Oh, I can hear that in your voice. Yes, I make anime merch and I sell like little keychains and things. Everyone needs to make money.
That's cool. How no, I love that. And whenever I go to like the comic and arts festivals and whatever, that
Hmm.
there's soap and there's like whatever. Is that lucrative or is it kind of like
It's more lucrative than you'd think for like
interesting?
a
So what is your
weekend. Yeah.
strategy there? Are you doing like fan art of popular anime to and hoping that people just find it, or are you like
Yeah, basically. I mean, I also just make things for things that I like and it ends up just selling. Again, if you do things that you like, people who care will find it.
not always true, I feel like.
Oh, well,
Well, yeah, no, I know what you mean, but like it helps if you like something that's very popular as
it
well.
does. It does. It
Like
does.
if you just love making Spider-Man merch, you'll probably do better than if you love making like
Uh,
some, I don't know, some OC for yourself
it's
that
true.
nobody
It's
knows
true.
about.
Well, if you're popular enough on the internet,
So are
then
you
people will buy it.
with your anime keychains and stuff, are you making that all at home and then shipping it out, or do you work with like a supplier and you just upload your artwork and like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's that kind of process for the most part where you can
Cool.
make different products. Gosh, are we supposed to be talking about stop motion?
We can talk about whatever. This is just, this is your, how did, what is this career you're pursuing? That's all this is. Like,
Yeah, true. Well, I mean, again, in an ideal world, stop motion forever.
yeah.
I really,
So thinking back to your office jobs where you had like stability, but it was boring and not your thing, versus now
mhm.
where you have to force yourself to be versatile and, go with the flow of productions. Do you ever miss what you gave up in some aspects for what you have now?
I mean,
I'm just wondering if there's
stability.
somebody,
Hmm?
in a similar situation that you used to be in your adult life, where you were working an office job and you had this fire in your heart that you didn't pursue. Like
Hmm.
talking now, are you totally happy that you did things the way you did them?
I think I am like, sure, sometimes it is a little stressful just working in contract work, and that's how animation is in general, right? Like there's very few people who get to not be contract to contract. And that is a little daunting in general, I feel. And especially with stop motion where we're having, periods where, I'm like, yeah, hopefully Stupid Buddy will have something soon, but there's like gaps where there isn't anything, and in
Mhm.
my ideal world, there will be. stop motion in Toronto consistently in the future. And I know like there's people who have strong feelings about keeping stop motion in Toronto who are trying hard to do that. And I would like to, I totally would go work in other studios in the States, but I also do really want to help foster what I can in Toronto. Not that I'm like, I can do much, just like,
Yeah.
you know,
Well,
people
it's
need to
part
be
of
here to
I
work on projects, and
totally.
I wanna help other people see the projects that they feel passionately about through. I'm not like a big I want to be a director kind of person. I'm more of a like
Yeah.
I want to help other people with their visions kind of person.
That's so wholesome and I love that. And I totally know what you mean because like in my own story, thinking back to like high school Terry, who was looking around and being like, what can I do with this cool thing that I like to do? I guess it's not an opportunity. So, just
Mhm.
keeping building up more opportunities here is something that I also want to do. I'm
Yeah.
wondering, you got into fabrication. Did you need to go to Sheridan to get into this? Like thinking
Mm,
realistically, you discovered that you liked fabrication in Sheridan because of the assignments. Then you got
right.
an internship because of Sheridan at
Mhm.
a very pivotal animation studio, who then hired you professionally. Do you think you could have ended up in a similar place now if you decided to do things on your own instead of going to school?
Yes and no. No, because my meeting Evan and Phil in stop motion department through that internship was definitely a huge stepping stone for me if I'm being realistic, like
Yeah.
that networking opportunity and,
You don't think you could
vibing
have
well with
done your
them.
research and figured out what stop
Um,
motion studios are in Toronto and then reached out to them and be like, hey, I like your stuff?
yeah, on the flip side, on the flip side, um, I didn't there was definitely were things about stop motion fabrication that I needed to learn for like 100%. There's like so many little uh tricks and techniques for how you can do literally everything. But in terms of fabrication itself, I didn't have to learn how to fabricate so much, if that makes sense, because I'm just outing myself more. Like I'm I cosplay like so and like make armor and deal with paint and
That's right. I forgot to ask you
casting.
about all your cosplaying. Of
Just outing
course.
myself, but I've been doing that for so long in my life that a lot of the processes and materials were at least somewhat similar to me. So it wasn't like I was jumping into fabrication with like I've never done this thing before. It was kind of like I have a base jumping off point of how this should work. So that like baseline of knowledge. I mean, it would be the difference. It would be similar to going to Sheridan. Like I've never drawn before. So I think that definitely helps with,
Yeah.
expediting my ability to fabricate versus if I had like no concept of what kind of glue works with this kind of material and had to figure that kind of thing out.
Totally. And like
Um,
I feel that because like so I've done a lot of fabrication, but I'm like, what do I know how to use? Paper mache, hot glue, and felt, and that's all I use for everything.
yeah, I mean, and
um,
it works. And by no means am I an expert in fabrication or every kind of material, but part of the beauty of stop motion is you can just use cardboard and felt and it works, right? But having a base understanding of just how materials interact with each
but did
other
it
is
help
very useful.
to, for instance, like when you're working with silicone puppets and professional materials, did it help to know that prior to working in a professional production? Like if I say I'm listening, I don't know, say I'm in Portland right now and I'm like, I want to get in puppet fabrication, and I look at the jobs and it's like, you have to know how to use all these materials. Like, is that
Yeah, I would say it is worth investing in. I mean, you don't have to go crazy like figuring out everything, but to have like casted parts in silicone before, at least like some arms or something, to have made a thing in latex just to dip your fingers into different kinds of not literally, but dip your
dipping?
fingers into don't dip your fingers into it. But into different kinds of materials and fabrication processes just so you
Yeah.
you can say you've done it, and like you don't have to be an expert in it, but to at least have a base understanding of how something works and it's not totally totally new to you.
Cool.
When actually something when I went to one of the Ottawa animation festivals, gosh, I don't remember what year it was, but it was the year that Andy Gent was there. I think he was the head of, I hope I'm getting his name right, the head of puppetry for or puppet fabrication for Isle of Dogs. I hope I'm getting that right. I think
I know his
my
name is
memory is so bad.
Andy. Anyways.
Anyway, but he had a, I really hope that's him. I think it's him. I'm so bad with names. I'm sorry if that's not right, sir. Anyway, he had like a meet and greet for Isle of Dogs. And I got to ask him a couple questions, and I was kind of like, this was right at the beginning of third year. So it was while I was starting the puppets for the third year group film. And I was kind of like, I really want to work in puppets for stop motion. Like, what is your like number one advice for getting into puppets?
Yeah.
And he was like, make as many puppets as you can. And I was like, okay. And like, I get it now because it's like, when you make a bunch of puppets, you're not doing the same thing over and over and over and over. You're like figuring out different materials, you're trying new things, like you're leveling up that skill set. And I think
Yeah.
at that point, maybe I had made 2 or 3 puppets, and then by the end of Sheridan, I had made, like, 12 or something like that. So I definitely did, like, make a bunch of puppets.
Do you remember any key thing that you learned in making those puppets that you were like, I'm never doing that again and I'm doing it this way because it just works so much better off the top of your
Hmm,
head? If not, it's fine.
I wanna say magnets for feet, but I could probably do better magnets, better sets, better puppet design, so maybe that's biased.
So like, but also, did you find that your puppet designs changed as you
Oh
started
gosh,
learning?
yeah.
Yeah.
Like, part of, I mean, puppet design is factoring that in for sure, and just trying to figure out, yeah, will it stand? Will it bend? I mean, hey, at Ultra City Smiths, we had to sometimes cut out hunks of the puppet's body so they could make a certain pose,
Yeah,
which was fine, but like, having to think about those kind of things and
totally.
cut out hunks of their body.
So I love that advice that you just gave, which was advice that you got about just making
Mhm.
stuff. I feel like that's good advice for anything. Like you want
Oh
to
gosh,
animate,
yeah.
animate every day. If you want to draw every day. If you want to puppet every day. I'm just thinking like, I'm obsessed with your like origin story. But I'm wondering, if there's somebody listening, what would right now, and they're in a similar place where they like have
Mhm.
this wanted desire to do something outside of what they're doing and they don't know how to start. What gave you the courage to, you saved up, et cetera, but like what gave you the courage to say yes to yourself?
Maybe it was just a deep exhaustion with boring jobs.
A
And
deep
knowing that like,
exhaustion.
yeah, and just knowing like you could do better, like you don't have to be a superstar, but like you could at least have a job that makes you somewhat happy.
Yeah.
You
So
know?
now in your career or wherever you're at, would
Mhm.
you ever go back?
Gosh, I really would hope not. Like I said, as long as I'm working in art, I think I'd be happy. And I think even in the gaps where there isn't stop motion necessarily, there's still other stuff happening that as long as you stay brushed up on stuff, and don't totally forget how to draw or
Yeah,
how to 2D animate. I mean, again, in an ideal world, that won't be the case, but I guess I would say to those people, like, you got to be really realistic. You got to like plan accordingly and, not be in a situation where you're just stressed out about existing every day. But I mean, it'll still happen if you're in art school, but again, you only live once, and it's just like, what is, yes, debt from art school is terrifying, but like really ultimately, what is that against feeling like you missed out on a certain kind of life because you
totally.
were scared about taking a shot on yourself? It's just
Totally.
investing in yourself because I don't know, something inspirational. I can't.
I think that's inspirational enough. I love it. I mean, just hearing you talk about this is like, I find it inspiring for myself.
Aw,
So this is cool.
you're so
We've
kind.
talked about how you made the change, how you went to school, how you got into puppet fabricating, some of the projects you worked on, and you have this
Mhm.
upcoming TASE and some other things. Is there anything else that you wanted to share kind of as we're wrapping up a little bit?
Um, Gosh, I wish I had something cool to say. I super don't. Keep doing the art, kids.
How about this? Was there anything that you didn't have throughout this journey that you wished you had to make it easier? And that
More
could be
money.
like, so more money, or
More
okay.
money, going to school full time and not being able to, going from working full time to going to school full time, even with savings, is scary. Let's be realistic. Um,
Other than money, because I feel like that's
like the
everybody
obvious,
could use more
easy.
money. Was there
That's the obvious.
anything that you, looking back, I guess,
Mm.
that somebody who's in this journey themselves could pursue to make things easier for them?
I think definitely I touched on it earlier too, perspective of what's important in art school and what ultimately
Yeah,
isn't. Like
yeah,
I just
totally.
think about weeks where like really poured all of my time and effort on a project that was like no shade, but like the
Did you do
bone
that?
portfolio
Did you
or
do that because
whatever.
you didn't have clarity on what you wanted to pursue professionally
Yeah,
at
I think it
the
was a
time?
mixture of that and just the overall pressure in art school to put like 120% into every project always. Like, look at that person's art. Why am I not that good? And
Yeah, there are some people in
definitely
art
not.
school who like put in half the effort you do, and you're like, why aren't you directing the next Pixar film already? Like, why are you here?
It's fine. They probably will.
Yeah, they will.
But I mean, also, yeah, learning to not compare yourself to other people is very
I remember
important.
seeing
All of
like
that.
Gami Shi's like life drawing in class and
Mhm.
everything, and it's like, oh wow, she's directing the next Pixar film coming up, and this is what her art looked like in first year. Like, where am I going to end up? Like in
Ain't
the
that the
garbage?
mood? No! You're going places, Terry, please. Look at you and
We'll
your
see.
fancy
We'll see. We'll see.
podcast. Don't forget me, Terry. Don't forget the little people.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't know. I guess you only live once is, I guess, my ultimate answer
Yeah,
to that. Like, I wish I had something more
it's fine. Whatever. You don't have to be this
inspirational, but
super impactful, inspirational thing. You're just
no,
yourself, and that's cool.
yeah, but it's just, hey, why live that mundane life when you can at least try. What's some debt versus potential potential happiness?
I feel you. I mean, that is not fun, but there's so much more
Hmm.
fulfilling. I personally feel so much more fulfilled in what I do now than what I was doing before. And I think that
Yeah.
I feel more complete as who I am, I guess, if that makes sense. Like, I feel like pursuing animation for me was a huge part of my personal identity figuring out, because it was this big part of me that I just never allowed to have a say in who I was and like what I was
Hmm.
doing. And now I'm fully putting that out, and it just feels like I'm more of a complete person, I guess. If that
Oh,
makes
you're
sense.
so inspirational too,
Oh
Terry.
no, no. Okay, whatever.
Yeah, and like I feel very honored that I've been able to work on some pretty cool projects too. Like Ultra City Smiths was amazing because it was such a cool project with like so many cool people I got to meet. But then yeah, working on things like, Let's Go Luna with their like charming storytelling, telling stories from around the world, and like a shaman's apprentice obviously was very impactful.
It
And
might win the Oscar.
God, that's pretty wild to think about.
Yeah.
Gosh. But it's just, I feel honored that I've been able to work on projects that weren't just, no shade on like, some shoe commercials or something. Like everybody's got to eat and do what they got to do. But it feels very nice that I've been able to
Yeah.
contribute in a little way to something that is important. And I hope I can keep doing that too. That's why I love your pitches so much, Terry, because they're so
Oh,
mixture of like fun and like actually important and smart and just, oh, I have feelings about stuff like that sometimes.
oh my gosh. Well, thank you. Well, I love what you just said. I think if you keep enjoying and what you're doing, these special projects will find you. I mean, like, clearly to me, your fabrication and art like stands out. So I think I think it's inevitable. So as long as you keep pursuing what you love, I think you're going to end up having a good time.
Pretty much. And like, here's to stop motion staying in Toronto forever. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. All right, Meaghan. Well, super. Thank you for coming on the chat. I've super enjoyed, I learned things I didn't know about you, which is really cool. And I'm glad we
Oh,
chatted, and hopefully we get to work together really soon. And if not, we'll just figure it out. We'll meet
I
up
know.
for lunch or something.
Yeah, we still have our bi-weekly lunches. But yeah, thank you for having me. It was fun. I hope I wasn't too flaily. Gosh.
I don't think so at
I
all.
hope
That's
my answers were sufficient.
They were
Try
great.
hard, kids. Do your best.
Try hard, kids. Do your best. Great. Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. And if you're listening and you want to follow or reach out to Meaghan because she's just a cool person, you can do so by checking out her website, which is meaghanhettler.com. And I'll include that link in the description of this podcast. And that's all for now. So thank you. Thank you so much for listening. Okay, bye. The music for this podcast was composed by Will Farmer and the graphics by Daniel Abensauer. I encourage you to look them up if you enjoyed their work.